In the last video, we discussed how not all deaf people use American Sign Language and then talked about SE or Signing Exact English, a sign system that combines ASL signs and English grammar, while also sprinkling in English concepts that do not exist in ASL. This video will discuss simultaneous communication, or SIMCOM for short. Simultaneous communication, like SE, is exactly as the name conveys. It is when the person uses a sign language and spoken language at the same time. Just like SE was created to make a visible version of English, SIMCOM was meant to provide equal access to information when hearing and deaf people were in the same location. Instead of having to wait for interpretation, the thought was both languages can be used at the same time. The main concern with SIMCOM is if it does provide equal access to information. Yes, the user can produce two languages simultaneously. ASL requires the hands and body, and English requires the mouth and vocal cords. Yet, there is already one overlap between ASL and English. They both require the mouth. Thus, when using SIMCOM, a part of ASL is not accessible. Mouth morphemes convey intensity, size, quantity, and several other adjectives. Therefore, SIMCOM conveys 100% of English and not 100% of ASL. In addition to the mouth morpheme issue, there are also language differences. As an ASL student, you probably know already how ASL to English or English to ASL is not always a one-to-one. This exists when people translate between any two languages. Sometimes words easily translate to the target language, but often there are words in one language that do not always have a direct translation. An example of this would be the same example discussed in the SEE video. Handsome and beautiful are both the same sign in ASL. Now the SIMCOM user must think, do they focus on the ASL side of the communication and thus only use one sign, or do they focus on English and therefore then need to sign beautiful twice, or do they lean into C and use a SEE sign for handsome? So already the user has to make quick decisions on what signs or English words to use when using SIMCOM. If sign or word choice was not already an issue, the next major problem is grammar and sentence structure. Again, as ASL learners, you are aware or are becoming aware of some major differences between English and ASL in their grammar and sentence structures. For example, ASL prefers the noun-adjective format, whereas English prefers the adjective-noun format. In an instance where a SIMCOM user needs to sign the sentence, "the big blue house," they are again in a conundrum. Does the person focus on ASL and sign house big blue and their English statement becomes the house that was big and blue, or does the person prefer English and say, "the big blue house," and lean into C by signing big blue house? In both these examples, beautiful and handsome and the big blue house, we are presented with two simple problems. Language, as we know, is much more vast and complicated. What tends to happen when a person SIMCOM is they favor English and their signing becomes C or a pidgin or Creole of C and ASL, a mixture of the two. So does SIMCOM actually provide equal access? No. We need to remember the deaf experience is one of exclusion and being overlooked. It is important for hearing people to focus on the inclusion of deaf people and focus on their needs first, because historically their needs have been neglected. When in the presence of a deaf person, take your time, sign first, English second. They may be okay with you using SIMCOM, but do not assume they will be.